Hey everybody, this is Brad from Johnson Small Engines, better known as the one-handed mechanic. If I can do it, you can too. Today we are working on a Toro Power Max snow thrower. The model number is a 726OE. I'm going to show you, in my opinion, how to remove and install the carburetor. This is a 9 foot-pounds gross torque engine, and it's basically 6.5 to 7.5 horsepower. I'm going to show you around the backside here on this plate. If you're looking up parts, you're going to need the two numbers at the bottom, which is the model number is 12D103. And the type number is a 0139-E8. Those are the numbers that you're going to need. The numbers on top, the first two digits right there is a 10. That means this was made in 2010. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys all the tools that were needed at the end of this video, so let's get started. Okay, so the nice feature with the Briggs & Stratton engines is they have a fuel shutoff, an inline fuel shutoff, which is really nice. They got away from fuel shutoffs on the China motors. Now that's on right there. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off. Now I'm using a pair of pliers because a lot of times these fuel shutoffs are very, very tight inside there, but it's nice to have. And just so you know, you should shut your fuel off, run it dry, and try to use non-ethanol fuel or Aspen 4. Aspen 4 is a great fuel to use if you can get it in your area. No ethanol, nitro-octane. And I'll show that in a link in the description below. We've got to get the fuels off, so we're going to take off these one bolt here, one bolt here. We're going to take off this knob right here for the choke, and then we have a bolt there and a bolt there. These bolts here can get pretty rusty, but use a little bit of never seize. Unfortunately, with the heat from the muffler right here, these are going to get pretty seized on there, and you have to keep all this covering over so you don't get any snow in on your carburetor. Using a 5/16 socket, I'm going to take the bottom two out. Pretty straightforward. Do not lose your hardware. I have a clip fastener tool right here that actually is great for removing knobs. You can use a screwdriver. You should really pry on both sides, but this helps me push it up, pull it off the top. You just have to remember, when you put this back on again, there's a wide spot and a skinny spot on this knob. Now there is also a wide spot on the choke lever itself, on the choke rod itself. Just make sure when you put it back down there, that is on correctly. You should just be able to pull this up off, and then the bottom's going to come right out. Now you also have a little slice right here, which is going to go into goes into this groove. See if I can get this around here. There's a groove in the bottom of this right here. And you just have to make sure when you put it back together again, that groove fits into the slot. Now there is a electrical line right here, which you don't have to disconnect. And then there's also the primer line, which you're gonna have to pop off the carburetor. And you wanna be careful. I'm just gonna try to pop it up, off like so. And then just make sure if you have any cracks or if it's in really bad shape, we want to replace this. I'm going to leave this hang off to the side right here. We have to take this spark arrestor off. And as you can see, there's no air cleaners on snow blowers because there should not be technically any dust when you're blowing snow. Now, if you keep this all together, you'll know how it goes back, but just remember that you have to make sure that's flush when you put it back together again. I've put these on backwards, and then you get frustrated. You have to take it all apart again and switch them around because the cover will not fit. So I'm going to try to leave it like that, and we'll just set this off to the side. Okay, so we have to get the fuel line off here. Just going to use a pair of pliers, push it up as far as I can. This is a heat shield, but some had them, some didn't. Just make sure your fuel is off. This is very hard and it just won't pry up off of here. So I'm gonna twist this with a pair of pliers. If you twist this back and forth and get it unstuck, it'll make it a lot easier to come off. And these can be really, really stuck on there. All right. If you have issues with gas on your hands, make sure you're wearing gloves. Okay, so at this point, I like to put a glass container underneath the fuel line and just check to see what's coming out of the gas tank. If you have any questions or doubts that you have bad gas, make sure you replace it. And I also look for a very dark color. If it's a very orange color, then it's probably been in there a long time and you don't want to use it. You want to start fresh. Okay, so the fuel line's off now. On the governor arm itself, there's a very small spring right here that attaches to a hole in the carburetor. It's gonna be really hard to show you this, guys, but there's a hole right there and the spring has to fit in that, and the spring is right here. And it's very fine spring, very small. And you can bend these real easily, taking these out. So be careful, but if they bend, they bend. Just do the best. You got to get them out. It's a little hook on the end, all right here. And now we can go ahead and take, these should be either 3/8 or 10 millimeter. And you also can use a Torx bit to get in there a little bit easier. It's a little hard to get on this one sometimes, but we're gonna go ahead and take them off. Okay, so I have a swivel, and if you have a small socket, they should work just fine. Very long bolt. Get the other one out. These bolts are the same, so don't have to worry about that. All right, so you still have the governor arm on there. And if you just pull this out and away, be careful you don't pull too hard on that governor arm. It should be just a hook. So you should be able to just pull it off the bottom of the hook. It's just a hook. I don't know if you can see that very well or not, but that's just a little bit of a, it's just like a 90-degree hook. It's a 90-degree hook. So you can see now the hole for the spring and the hole for the governor arm itself, governor rod, I should say. And sometimes you can put the spring on first and then put the carburetor on, so that might help when we put it back together again. I'm going to go ahead and I got to rebuild this carburetor, and we'll be right back and I'll show you how to reinstall it. Just got done rebuilding the carburetor, and once you guys zoomed in here, hopefully you guys will be able to see me, but I have a gasket here. Now there's the gasket, there's a manifold here, and then that manifold will actually come off and there's a gasket behind there. So if you guys had it all fall apart on you, you should probably do both gaskets. The nice thing about these manifolds here is they also hold the gasket in, which is nice. We're gonna go ahead and I'll show, just like I showed you before, you have the one hole there. We're gonna try to put, the fuel line's in my way here a little bit. I'm gonna pull this out. I'm gonna try to put the little spring in. Now this little spring definitely is a little bit banged up and bruised, but it still works. I'm gonna put the spring in the little hole first, and then I'm gonna go ahead and just put that rod in, just like so. That actually went on pretty well. Hopefully you guys could see that. And it'll fit right over the manifold. Just like to get these started so it doesn't fall apart. And go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and put the fuel line on. If there's any question and doubt, the gas in your gas tank is bad, just go ahead and replace it. Clamp. Go ahead and put your spark arrestor back on again. This technically is a screen on the front of this thing is a spark arrestor. It's not a air cleaner. Now at this point, before you put the covers back on again, I'm going to go ahead and turn the fuel on, because there's two reasons. One, we can start the machine up now and make sure it runs okay. And then two, any kind of leaks or anything you're going to have in the carburetor will show up now. And it's better to be safe than sorry. Just make sure you're letting the fuel flow in here. Give it 5 minutes to set up, and then we're going to go ahead and start it. I'm going to go ahead and put the primer line back on. There is no fuel coming out from anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and try to start it right now. The choke, I can go ahead and put that on just like that, and it's going to be hard to see, but you should be able to see through there and see the choke closed. So it's in the closed position now. I'm going to go ahead and prime it once, twice. Probably have it. You got to make sure that you're up on fast or medium, because I had it on stop. Make sure you're up in the middle here. Give it a pull. running pretty good. I just basically flooded the carburetor. That was what all this fuel was. Gonna go ahead and rev it up. Runs good. I definitely would check your oil to make sure there is no gas in the oil. Smell it. If the oil is overfilled, you definitely want to get that out of there. We're going to go ahead and change the oil because it did have a smell to it. We're just going to change the oil anyway. Whenever I do a carburetor rebuild, because what can happen is if your carburetor lets loose because of bad gas, the gas from the gas from the gas tank can go through the carburetor into the engine and flood the engine out with gasoline. So you have to get that old gas and oil out of there, out of the engine, put fresh oil in. But right now we're going to show you how to finish this up as far as closing it up. So I'm going to go ahead and put the bottom on. Actually, I want to flip this up and over like that. Just going to go ahead and slip that up into its spot. Once I get the bottom started, I go ahead and put the top in before I tighten everything up. And you may want to put some Never-Sees on those if you have Never-Sees. It does help a little bit. If you have cracks up here in your plastic, you can put washers underneath these bolts. That'll help clamp it down. Again, just make sure you line up the choke knob where it goes. Choke on, choke off. We're gonna give it one more shot. I'm gonna put the choke on. Won't need to use, I'm not gonna use the primer, I don't wanna flood it. Take it up to fast, back down to half. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the tools that I used in this video. If you guys did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe, share my channel with your friends, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Okay, so tools from left to right. I just want to show you guys Aspen 4. This is a 92 octane. It's an alkylate fuel. This is a really pure form of fuel you can buy. I'll put a link in the description below. You guys can read about it. It can stay fresh for up to 2 years in the machine and up to 5 years in a bottle. It's a great product for not having any more carburetor issues, so that's something to keep in mind. We have just a pair of pliers, a couple pair of needle nose pliers, 5/16 socket, deep or shallow will work. I used a 10mm on a swivel. It's either a 10mm or 3/8 that I work to get the carburetor off. I use an extension, 1/4 inch ratchet if needed. This is my clip tool remover. I will put that in the link in the description below. It works great for a lot of different things. 5/16 nut driver also used, and I did use a 1/4 inch electric ratchet. I use that in all my videos. So that pretty much wraps it up for the tools.